Hey guys, okay, so I'm doing a Q&A on unassisted pregnancy, my unassisted pregnancy and planned free birth. So yeah, I thought I would do that to celebrate my 40th week of pregnancy, which is going down tomorrow, or which will start tomorrow. So I've got a list of questions here. I'm just going to get right into it, and I'll try not to babble too much or make myself have to edit this video because it's going to be really long. Okay. What is an unassisted pregnancy? Is it no prenatal care or just no assistance during birth? Why not any prenatal care? An unassisted pregnancy is no checkups during pregnancy. You're not under the supervision by, a medical professional, whether that be a doctor or a midwife. It's different than a free birth. A lot of women decide to have prenatal care during their pregnancies and then will just birth without those attendants. So for myself, I fired our midwives at 20 weeks. So I had regular routine everything until 20 weeks. So somebody else asked me if I had ultrasounds. Yes, I actually had 3 ultrasounds during the first 20 weeks, and they were all just routine ultrasounds, which is really crazy to think that there was so many in such a short period of time for no reason. Yeah, considering that we did a blood test for a gender reveal at 9 weeks pregnant, so which is really cheap to do. You do it on your own at home. It's more accurate than an ultrasound. Safer than an ultrasound. Ultrasounds have been proven to alter and damage living cells. There is tons of research done on this. You ask your ultrasound tech or your doctor if ultrasound is safe, and they say, yeah, of course it's safe, but it's not, and neither is Doppler use. Doppler is apparently 3 times, or like 30 seconds on a Doppler is just as harmful or can do just as much damage as like a 30-minute ultrasound, like video ultrasound. So yeah, I started learning. Actually, I'm gonna link those a couple podcast links in the description below on debunking ultrasounds and the dangers of ultrasounds. So anyways, I didn't know that stuff in the beginning. I would have done things differently, or maybe I'll do things differently for the next time. But yes, I did have 3 ultrasounds, and I did all the regular stuff until 20 weeks. And the question why did I decide to go unassisted? Well, that is just because, yeah, there was no reason. There was a lot of things that I didn't want that the midwives were going to bring to my birth. Cervical exams, monitoring of heart rate, rules and regulations. Like, you have to birth your placenta within a certain amount of time. You can't stay pregnant past 42 weeks or else they transfer you to the hospital or transfer out of their care, and then they midwives here in the States have no hospital privileges. I did not want any of those disruptions during my birth. So it was obviously a huge decision, and I didn't even know it existed when I first got pregnant. Free birth or unassisted pregnancy, I'd never even heard of it before. I'd always planned a home birth, but I just thought you just had midwives there. That's what you did, because that's how we grew up. My mom had a home birth, and I was adopted later in my teenage years from a home birth midwife. So that was just like standard practice, for me growing up and my entire life, knowing that if I ever had kids, then I would just have a home birth. But then I started learning a lot about that often midwives bring in the same interventions, not as much, but still a lot, more than I was comfortable with as a doctor would, as going to a hospital. And especially for first-time moms, it's like a 50% transfer rate. Yeah, it was all pretty much out of pocket. Our insurance pays for a little bit of a midwife-assisted home birth, a little bit of it, like less than half, and it's about $5,500 here in San Diego. So you have to pay it all out of pocket up front. Every time we were going for our monthly prenatal exams or checkups, it was bringing them a check for $835. And, they'd take my heart rate and and plus copays every time we'd go for an ultrasound and stuff. And I was just like, why am I paying like all this money? Like, I can take my own blood pressure and monitor my nutrition, check my weight, check my baby's heart tones. Anyways, so but it wasn't just the money. There was a lot of reasons. So that's just to kind of skim on the surface. On basically, I didn't want anybody fucking up my birth, and I didn't want strangers at my birth, and I didn't know these people. And there was a group of midwives. So, and just to touch on that, TRICARE only will cover a home birth, midwife assisted home birth, if it's including a registered nurse midwife, which I think there's only 2 in the San Diego region. I think there's one in San Diego, one in Escondido that, that do home births. So anyways, not a lot of options, and so a lot of reasons. But that's why we decided not to have anybody at our birth, and therefore I really didn't need anybody to run my prenatal care, because my baby is me. Like, it's literally made of my cells. It's in my body. It's like, I didn't need anybody telling me like how my baby was, because it's how I am, you know, like how am I feeling? Am I rested? Am I hydrated? Am I taking care of myself? And all of these things that nobody else could tell me how my baby was doing. And if somebody wants to look on an ultrasound, that only shows, it's not even a real picture of your baby, you know, it just shows, anyways, I don't want to get too much into ultrasound, but I will add some links to the bottom of this. It only shows like that baby right there in that second. It doesn't show what was happening before. It doesn't show what's going to happen after. And really, there's nothing anybody can do to change unless you want to abort your baby. By the time you get, test results back from a chromosomal testing panel, like you're, 20 weeks pregnant? And what are you going to do then? Be stressed for the next half of your pregnancy? So they fucked up my blood work, and I had went to get all that testing done, all the chromosomal testing done, and I never even got results because they didn't send it off properly or something, and I had to pay copays for that ultrasound as well. So, whatever. Lots of reasons. Okay. But like I said, that's just for myself. So once deciding that we were going to free birth, I didn't have any outside care. A lot of women, like I said, do want that stuff done. You know, they want the blood panels, and they want care from a midwife or from an OB. And so, yeah, it can really look like however you want it to look like, and that's the nice thing about it, is that, the woman has a choice to do what she feels like doing. Okay. That was a long first answer, but hopefully that'll cover like a lot of answers. Is it just you and your husband during the birth, or midwife and doula? It's just my husband and I. Some women who free birth do want other support, family members, other women, doulas. So, but yeah, it wouldn't be considered a free birth if there was a midwife there. Even if it was a hands-off midwife, I don't think that would be considered a free birth or an unassisted birth. Or even if it was a friend of yours who's just there as a friend but is also a midwife, or your mother who's, also like a medical professional, or labor and delivery nurse or midwife. People, whether they want to like turn that part of their brain off or not, I don't think it's possible, And then the birthing woman is still part of herself, it's still like, I don't want to speak for anybody else. Anyways, just no for us. Okay, what is the plan for cord prolapse? Cord prolapse is whenever like the cord comes out before the baby comes out, and then it'll probably it's really dangerous. It could get squished, from the baby's skull on your pelvic bones, or so yeah, if it's extremely rare, and that's why you see cords wrapped around babies' necks and babies' bodies several times, because babies are super smart and they wrap the cords around themselves to protect that, protect themselves from that happening. And which is not a danger at all whenever there's a cord wrapped around a baby several times, whether it's their arm, their back, their neck, whatever. So there's a substance covered covering the umbilical cord called Wharton's Jelly. You can Google it, and it explains a little bit more about just how resilient and stretchy and slimy and squishable an umbilical cord is. Okay, so plan for cord prolapse. If it was a true cord prolapse, I would transfer to the hospital. So we would call 911. During that time that I was waiting for an ambulance, I would be as close to upside down as possible, or try and get the cord back inside myself, or just have my ass up in the air and my chest down. Okay, thick meconium. Well, depends. I guess, they did say thick meconium. So yeah, that would be a concern of mine if there was thick meconium. If I started developing signs of an infection, like a fever. So if there was thick meconium, I don't plan on taking my temperature regularly throughout labor unless there was, thick meconium. And then I would just monitor myself for how I felt and signs of a fever. And if I had signs of infection, then I would transfer probably. I mean, just depending on how I felt, and if I felt like I needed help, then I would go. But if there was meconium in my water once my water broke, I wouldn't be worried. Rupture of membranes for a long time. So whenever you're under the care of a medical professional, if your water breaks, you're under a time clock. You have 24 hours basically to get the baby out. And so that's super bullshit, basically. And tons of premature babies are born that way because they'll induce you, If you don't have contractions, you'll be induced. And that's extremely dangerous. So, what would I do if my water was broken for a long period of time? Well, nothing. I would continue living my life and staying hydrated and, checking myself, like, do I feel okay? I would definitely be keeping stuff out of my vagina and to not, to make sure that I'm not getting an infection. I mean, you have two membranes, okay? You have like two layers of like sacs, and sometimes you can get a slow leak. Sometimes it'll repair itself and the water will replenish. But it's definitely not a worry of mine. Abruption, so that would be like placental abruption, which again, extremely rare, especially whenever there's no intervention, like there's no labor augmenting drugs being used on you. That's like just so rare that, I mean, if I was like gushing blood, like losing tons and tons and tons of blood, and I was like, passing out, or maybe not more than passing out, like, I wasn't able to stay with it and something was really wrong and there was like signs of a real hemorrhage, then I would transfer. But that is just so rare for that to happen in an undisturbed birth. It does happen a lot more in a hospital because of all the drugs, all the interventions, but you don't see that happening a lot at home birth. Bleeding, lots of bleeding, yeah. Birth can be, oh, you're so cute. Birth can be really bloody for some women, but losing a certain amount of blood doesn't classify it as a hemorrhage. I think they have it classified as, I don't know, don't quote me on this, but I think it's like 300 milliliters. Something like that. But then whenever we donate blood, we give like 500. I think those numbers are wrong. But anyways, so one person could lose a little bit of blood and she could hemorrhage, that could send her off, and she would need help. She would need blood transfusions. And another woman could lose like 5 times that amount and she would be fine. So it really depends on the person. Everybody's different. And okay, does it exclude a vitamin K and the eye goop? I can't pronounce that word. It's like, actually it's in here somewhere, but you guys know what I'm talking about. It's like erythema Tyson, something like that. It's an antibiotic ointment that they put in your kids' eyes. And it's really, I think, only necessary if the woman has gonorrhea and she births vaginally. So no, I'm definitely not going to be putting that in my baby's eyes. I'm also definitely not going to be giving a vitamin K shot. There is actually a black label warning on the box for the vitamin K shot. So if you're in the hospital, you can ask to see the box. You can just Google black box warning vitamin K shot and see it online anywhere. It's not a secret that, and that's like a fatal warning. It's extremely dangerous. I truly believe that babies are born with low vitamin K for a reason. I don't think that everything was just created perfectly in this world, and God was just like, I'm gonna fuck this one little thing up about birth and babies. Like, it doesn't make any sense. I think that there's tons of vitamin K in a woman's colostrum and breast milk, enough to support your baby, and until they start producing their own. And yeah, the really bad jaundice cases that you hear about are of babies who get vitamin K shots. So yeah, fuck no, I'm not giving my baby anything like that. Okay, what else? If we do delayed cord clamping post delivery, how will we determine the bilirubin if the bilirubin is too high in the days following birth? So let's say if we do a lotus birth and keep our baby attached to the placenta for 3 or 4 days until it like dries and separates on its own. How will we determine the bilirubin? Like, first of all, I never planned on checking those levels. I mean, I'm just going to be breastfeeding my baby, giving it sunlight, giving it lots of skin to skin. And jaundice is super common. And yeah, I would never follow the advice of a doctor or, and give my baby formula if like his levels were too high or something. Fuck no. I would just breastfeed it, give it lots of sunlight, give it tons of skin to skin, and do that. And I'm talking about a healthy baby here, like that's born spontaneously, that's not induced, that's not premature. It would obviously be completely different in a different circumstance, but at 40 weeks pregnant now, I feel like whenever my baby's going to be born, he's going to be developed enough, to support himself and for my breast milk to support him. So how did you maintain pull-up strength and keep weight down? Well, I didn't actually even really train a lot of pull-ups. I would pretty much anytime I post a video on YouTube or Instagram, that was like my one set of pull-ups for the week. I don't know, I've just done tons of pull-ups over the years, and I mean, I haven't really maintained it. Like, yeah, I can still do them, but I used to be able to do 20 body weight, and now I'm doing 6. So it's pretty relevant, and keep weight down. Even when I was really sick with morning sickness during the first trimester, I fucking forced myself to get my ass on the Stairmaster for 30 minutes a day while I was listening to these really informative podcasts, Freebirth Society podcasts, and I did not want to have a baby and then be in this body that I hated. And it might sound really conceited, but I mean, I'm a fitness professional, fitness professional, whatever the fuck that means, I make money from sponsors and, from training people and stuff. So it was important for me, that was my job. And it's really hard for me to love myself whenever I don't like what I see, and I knew that I had to like gain a certain amount of weight to support my baby and to be healthy. And I never like dieted or tracked my macros, and like I needed to stay active to feel good about myself, and like that played a huge part. Like either I was gonna feel like shit on the couch whenever I had morning sickness, or all daytime sickness, nighttime sickness, whatever, first trimester sickness, or I was gonna feel like shit walking on a Stairmaster. So I did what I could, and yeah, it would have been too easy for me not to, but I just did not want to end up in this body that I hated, and yeah, it was important for me. And that might sound really conceited to a lot of people, but I'm sure a lot of people understand, so I knew that I would be really happy if I pushed myself in the beginning to keep up with it. And I didn't work out a lot, I mean, I did as much cardio as I could. I continued to run in the first trimester until it got really uncomfortable and I just felt like I had to pee all the time. But I just did the best I could, and I tried to do 30 minutes of cardio on weekdays, and anything on top of that was an extra, any kind of weightlifting or accessories. That was just, bonus. But I haven't, there's a lot of stuff that I stopped doing. I stopped running, I stopped deadlifting, I stopped training abs. I know some women don't. My sister Erin, my identical triplet sister, she continued running throughout her entire pregnancy, lifting a lot more than I did. She was competing in CrossFit and weightlifting at the time, and yeah. Okay. When I'm exercising and doing pull-ups, what is the baby's reaction? Does he relax or move around? I wonder how the adrenaline will affect him. Yeah, I never feel him moving when I'm like in a set. Sometimes like when I sit down afterwards, but not really, you know, yeah, not usually. He's just pretty quiet during that time, and it's mostly like when I'm quiet that he's moving around a lot, like when I'm in a bath or when I'm just lying in bed. Those are the times that I feel the most movement. What ways have you prepared yourself for free birth? I'm planning one next year. Awesome. There was a lot of people actually that asked me questions that said that they had just had one or they were planning one within the next year. And that was really friggin' cool to see. And a lot of my followers were like, oh, fellow UC, UP are checking in here. Like a lot of women have done it that apparently follow me, which is fucking cool because I didn't even know it existed like 6 months ago. Some things I did to prepare myself was the biggest thing was finding Freebirth Society and taking their course, the Complete Guide to Freebirth. And yeah, it was so worth the money that it was. It was a few $100, and I mean, less than one prenatal visit with midwives, you know? It covered every fucking little detail, you know, backed by tons of evidence and tons of experience. Yeah, on anything that I had a fear about or any doubt I had in myself, and it was really an amazing course. It's like a work at your own pace online course, and then there's coaching calls and like online meetups with groups of women who are, you know, also doing it. It was really amazing, and I learned a lot. And just listening, they have a lot of free resources as well. Their podcast, you know. At first, when I started listening to their podcast, I was like, this is kind of crazy, like not even with a midwife. But I don't know, I just kept listening to it for some reason. I was fucking intrigued. And then eventually I was just like, of course she wouldn't use a midwife. Like, of course she wants to do it this way. And yeah, it just started making more and more and more sense. And yeah, I learned a lot of stuff. It was... I'm really grateful that I didn't have to experience a traumatic birth, whether with midwives or, you know, home birth transfer or doctors or whatever. I didn't have to experience any trauma for me to decide, you know, to take responsibility for my own pregnancy and my own birth. Because that's how I would probably say most women come to it, you know, after having a bad experience. But also, you don't have to do anything to prepare yourself for a free birth. I mean, work on your intuition. Like, do stuff like that. Because this is just a regular function of your body that, like, yeah, I'm like that. Like, I want to know, like, every scenario, every answer, do tons of research. But a lot of women are just, like, they don't need to do that, you know, to have the confidence. And because really, birth just works. You just leave it alone and long enough, like... You know, eventually a baby will emerge and your body will know what to do. You will know what to do. So I give like major props to the women who don't do all this research and stuff because you don't need to, you know? You don't need to. Like my husband, you know, at first I was really trying to like shove like all this information down his throat. And he knows like, I mean, fuck, I obviously don't shut up about it. And he knows like enough about like, you know, major emergencies and stuff. But he just trusts me, you know, to know it's not like I'm going to like they said this in one of the podcasts recently. It's not like I'm gonna like a woman like becomes fucking stupid like when they're birthing or when they're in labor or they're not coherent, you know, or after they give birth. It's like they're probably like so alert after they give birth. And yeah, my husband trusts me he just trusts me because I trust my body and he trusts me. And yeah, he doesn't need to know everything. He doesn't need to be my care provider. He doesn't need to be the fucking doctor here for the birth, you know? So that's cool. Okay. are you going to film and share the birth? I'm definitely going to film it. And I don't know if I'll share it yet, but probably, maybe. There's actually, yeah, well, I'll talk more about that later, but we'll see about sharing it. But yeah, I'm going to film it. Has your previous use of steroids affected pregnancy and conception? No. And then she followed up the question that she asked me if I'd taken Clomid before trying to conceive, and I said no. I'd been off steroids for 2 years and had a regular cycle, and that, yeah, it didn't affect me at all. So we got pregnant the second month of trying. And my boyfriend asked, isn't lifting dangerous for the baby? One of my followers' boyfriends saw a video of me lifting. How did you know it was safe? Well, I mean, just kind of common sense to me. I mean, as long as I've been lifting weights, I've known that pregnant women can lift weights and that they can do whatever they did before, you know? Before they became pregnant, they can continue to do it during their pregnancies. Yeah. So I don't have like a very good answer for that, and I probably should, since I'm so like involved in the fitness world or in powerlifting, but it's just safe. And I mean, you'll just know, you know, like, you have a fucking brain. Like, you know, like, if something doesn't feel good, you don't do it, and if it feels fine, do it. Like, if you can, you know, like, you're gonna continue to do it. Like I said, there's a lot of movements that I don't do anymore. They stopped feeling good. Not that they ever felt good, but, you know, they started feeling like, no, like off, like, no, that doesn't feel good. And especially like when I deadlifted heavy, it didn't feel right, so I didn't do it anymore. What about what to do about shoulder dystocia, and how would you know if it's happening? This woman's also planning one. A free birth. Well, shoulder dystocia, I believe in an undisturbed birth, a woman will put herself into the position that she needs to be in for the baby to, you know, to work with her baby so that her baby can birth himself or herself. And in the hospital, they have like a time clock. Like, once the head is out, if like so many seconds go by, it's not like you're encouraged to just like, you know, chill and like wait for the next contraction, to let your body, you know, start pushing on its own, or, you know, to rely on the fetal ejection reflex, which, if you've never heard of that and you have children, look it the fuck up. It's awesome. You know, a woman doesn't need to be told when it's time to push. Well, obviously, whenever she's numbed, you know, with an epidural, and she doesn't feel contractions and she doesn't feel the urge to push or anything, then yeah, obviously it doesn't work that well anymore. But set up, like left alone, it just works. And shoulder dystocia, sometimes the head comes out and it's 10 minutes, you know, before the body rotates, or before the rest of the body is born. And it's not at all a concern of mine or my friends who free birth, because it's normal. Some babies take longer. Some babies come out one shot. Some babies, it's seconds after the head is born, you know. Body rotates. Well, it doesn't always rotate, but, you know. So, yeah. Whenever we put, one of my friends said this, like, whenever birth is put into the hands of somebody whose livelihood depends on emergencies happening because they will make more money, then yes, then shit's made up, like shoulder dystocia and stuff like that. Like it's okay, like, for the baby to be stuck for a few minutes, you know, and it's not stuck, like, they're just working with you. And like I said, usually a change of position, you know, going on hands and knees, that's pretty much what the Gaskin maneuver is, which is, you know, a very famous midwife, Ina May Gaskin. They would flip the woman onto her hands and knees if she wasn't already, if they felt like, you know, the head had been born too long and the shoulders were stuck. And all the time, you know, that's all it takes. It's just a change of position. And whenever you're not numbed, and, you know, your body will tell you where it needs to be, and you'll listen to it because that's just the way it's set up. Okay. Are you going to have shepherd's purse or other herbs on hand in case of hemorrhage, or are you just planning to chew on the placenta? So at first, when I first started planning this pregnancy, I was, I had this huge list of like stuff I would need at the birth, and like now, like I have a birth tub, which maybe I'll use. Like it's just like a luxury. I have like a little stack of towels. I have some more, just like some old towels, and it's like that's it. But I mean, food and water is important too. But anyways, yeah, I had like a huge list of stuff, and on there was shepherd's purse, angelica, all these herbs. You take this one before the placenta comes out. You take this one after the placenta comes out. You take this one for the after pains, and yeah, I don't have any of that stuff, and for me, it's not important. And yeah, I mean, I think we're well equipped with. Like she said, I can chew on a piece of the cord. You can like put it in your, like a dip, Yeah, you can put it in your gum line and suck on that. Or a piece of the placenta, just eat it raw. If you're bleeding out a ton and you're worried about hemorrhaging, you can do that. Yeah. So, no, I'm not going to have any herbs or anything. Oh, I do have some herbs for a bath. And some like I did get a sitz bath and some herbs for that. So then I got some herbs for like just a regular bath, like to, soak in there with my baby when I decide I want to do that, if I want to do that. But yeah, but none to have to do like with the birth. It's mostly just for like a postpartum, like little luxury thing. And nobody asked me about tearing hair, which I was surprised about. But you don't really hear about actually, yes, super bad tears can happen in a free birth. It's more rare because, your body, you're in the position that you need to be in. You're not forced into a position. There's no coach pushing and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I have heard of women, getting pretty bad tears, and you don't need stitches for like a vaginal or like a tear on your perineum. Like, just leave it alone. And some women use honey and seaweed and stuff. I'm not going to. I mean, I'm just kind of like assuming that I'll tear. It's not even a big deal to me at all. And yeah, I don't want stitches. A friend of mine that I know who had a home birth recently, she got stitches, and I just, yeah, it didn't go well. And they don't always dissolve. And a lot of times they cause more complications. And a lot of times a woman has to tear at a later birth to then heal properly, that original tear. There's complications involved, or that can be involved, like painful sex and just other stuff that I really believe that our bodies, it's like it's like the skin on a lip. If your lip splits, you're not going to stitch your lip, it just heals. It's the same kind of skin, it's the same tissue, so yeah, I would never get stitches, honestly, no matter how bad the tear is. But usually, I mean, in an undisturbed birth, it's not going to be very bad. I mean, and if it is, then stay in bed, and maybe that's your fucking higher power telling you, stay the fuck in bed, you need a rest during this time, unless you want to open it back up, stay in bed, keep your legs closed. Yeah, so what is your take on vaccines? Did you get any vaccines during your pregnancy? I'm just going to answer all the vaccination questions right now. And then, will you receive any vaccinations as preventative for your baby or you? Okay, so I'm not vaccinated. My mom did not vaccinate us. Thank fucking God. Thanks, Mom. And there was actually a death in our immediate family, in my husband's immediate family. A baby died at 5 months old after having newborn vaccines, after the mother was pressured by pediatricians into getting the baby vaccinated. Yeah. And so, and not just that one child dying, but I know personally of 2 other children who have died from SIDS, which should be called VIDS, fucking vaccine induced. or vaccine infant, whatever the fuck. Anyways, it's bullshit. And yeah, I'm super against vaccinations, and I'm not here to, try and educate anybody on that. There's tons of information out there. There's tons of proof. And yeah, no, I'm not going to be getting... I definitely did not get any vaccinations. Well, obviously, ever in my life, and I won't ever have our son vaccinated. And yes, for a very good reason. Are you going to be... Okay, I already mentioned that. Are you going to work out with your little one wrapped on you? Probably. That'd be really cool. So, I mean, I'm sure I will, at some point. Do you have names picked out yet for the cub? Yes, of course we do. We're not sharing them publicly, but there was a hint dropped in my sheepskin cleaning nesting series part 3 video that I just uploaded the other day on what his name starts with. Will you do any postpartum checks for you or your baby with a midwife? No. Will you take your baby to a pediatrician after for a checkup? There was a few questions like that, like about wellness checks. And then what are your postnatal plans? Are they alternative like your birth plans? Will you plan not to have any postnatal care, wellness checks for you or the baby? So yeah, no, we're not bringing our baby anywhere to see any doctor. I don't need, I can weigh the baby myself. I have it under here. I have you don't need to weigh your fucking baby, first of all. I mean, that's just something that we're going to do for fun. But, and I'm only going to do it after they're born, just to know, because it's my first kid and because I want to. I took this from the gym. It's a fish scale. The people at the gym use it to weigh band tension. So it's going to wrap him in a ring sling and weigh him on that, and just for fun. But it's probably going to be the only time I weigh him. I'm not going to be checking his weight obsessively or logging every time he nurses or, soils a diaper. Oh yeah, nobody asked me about cloth diapering or EC in here, but that's pretty interesting stuff if you guys want to know more about it. It was actually a comment on one of my YouTube, on my original pregnancy Q&A, that somebody suggested elimination communication. I had never heard of it before, and now we're going to be doing it right from birth. So thank you if you're watching this video, because I didn't even know it existed. It's really cool though. If you guys are interested, just look it up. There's tons of information out there. You basically start potty training your baby, well, from whatever age you want, but for us, we're going to start at birth. And then using cloth diapers as backup, or maybe during the night. So, yeah, no checkups later. I don't need anybody to, tell me how my baby is, or to tell me that my baby is fine. I'm his mother, and trust me, nobody's going to care more for that child than I will. And I'm perfectly capable of knowing if my baby's okay and bringing them to get help if they're not. Okay, I really hope I'm focused. What is plan of action if an emergency happens, stall of labor, or baby gets stuck? Well, like I said, I don't believe that baby getting stuck is even a thing, not in an undisturbed birth. It might take a long time for your baby to be born. Maybe it'll take days, longer than it would in a hospital without, intervention, but that's totally okay with me. And then, or same thing, stall of labor. What does that even mean? Nobody's going to be putting their hands inside my vagina and telling me how dilated my cervix is. And I mean, I can check it myself if I want, but unless you're really experienced on checking dilated cervixes, I doubt you're going to fucking know, what you're feeling. And I sure don't have any experience doing that. But anyways, Yeah, I mean, that's not even a thing. Like, to me, that doesn't even exist, stall of labor. I mean, labor can start, it can stop, it can stay stopped for weeks, but whenever your baby's ready to be born, like, you know, your like labor time will start, like the birth process will start, and then a baby will be born. But it's, I think, really common. They call it like prodromal labor, or like false labor. But yeah, that's not even a thing to me. Like I said, just like birth happens, just leave it alone, and yeah, eventually it'll happen. So that's definitely not an emergency. An emergency, like we already talked about, like some real emergencies, like cord prolapse, and you know, but that's definitely not an emergency. Um, are you planning to co-sleep? Yep, we're planning to co-sleep. Um, are you planning to birth in water or just wherever your body leads you? Yeah, just wherever my body leads me. But we do have all the fancy like stuff set up, the hoses and the hose attachments for the shower head and the birth pool and a nice salt water hot tub to labor in and a couple bathtubs. So I'm sure that I'll labor in the water. It's where I've been most comfortable is in a hot bath. Since getting pregnant, and that's when I actually connect with my baby the most. Somebody asked me that. Um, where is it? Oh yeah. Do you have any favorite meditations, daily practices for connecting to your baby? What's your okay? So yeah, like I take sometimes like 3 baths a day, and our tubs here at this new house are smaller than like where I was living before, so it's not like as luxurious, but the bathtub fills up super fast, and it's really nice. And that's whenever I feel like the most movement from the baby, and that's whenever I'm able to connect with him the most because I'm not on my phone, I don't have distraction, and it's just me and him, and it's nice. Um, yeah, and I'm not concerned about being in hot water. Like, I mean, I set my hot tub at 102 degrees, and a lot of people don't recommend that, and they say, um, I don't know where it comes from, if they don't want you getting dehydrated, or um, they say, or I've heard my midwives tell me, you don't want to be in a bath that's hot enough to make you sweat. Or they would have the temperature of the birth pool under a certain amount. But anyways, it's not like I'm gonna have a thermometer in the birth pool making sure that it's the perfect temperature. And especially in a bathtub or a birth pool, it's not gonna stay that hot for a long time. Like it's gonna cool off. But anyways, okay. Any idea how long you'll be able to get back to working out postpartum? And will you take any time off? Well, yeah, for sure. I'm probably going to take like 30 or 40 days off. I want to just be lying in bed with my baby for that long. Our postpartum plans are to not have any visitors, even anybody, immediate family or anybody, for the first couple weeks. And then after that time, I'd really like to just still stay at home in bed with the baby. So no, I'm not going to be working out during that time. Or maybe I will. But I mean, we have a garage gym, but I don't think so. I'd really like to just nest. But who knows? And then somebody else asked me, will you wait the standard 6-week period before returning to like the normal like sex, lifting, cardio, birth control? No, I don't even know why that's a thing. Like for some women it takes, fucking 6 days. For some it takes 6 months. Like I know a lot of women who start having sex like days, like obviously like gentle sex, or days or a couple weeks, or and it's a lot longer for some other people. And I just believe you listen to your body, and your body will tell you, like you'll know. So I don't have any kind of like a timestamp that we're going to be following like that at all. And okay, how are you feeling? Emotionally excited, nervous? I'm feeling really excited. Like I want my baby to be born today. Last night we went to see The Grinch. with Gage's whole family. And the entire time I was in the movie theater, I was having contractions and I thought I was in early labor. And I was really excited. I really wanted to leave. I was really uncomfortable. But I'm just like, just stay for the fucking movie. It's going to be over eventually. And, but then as soon as as soon as I got up, it stopped and went to sleep. And we're like almost 24 hours later and nothing, still pregnant. So I was really excited. I was like, fuck, man, we're going to have a baby born on the Marine Corps birthday. Super blessed. But, no. I'm just really excited. I'm not nervous at all. I'm just really excited. I'm really excited to go through this like transformation. And yeah. Also, somebody asked, just because somebody asked here if I was nervous, somebody also asked a couple times, are you worried about going medication free? How are you going to manage the pain? Well, some of the best advice I got was from a woman who had 2 free births that I met when I was back home in Quebec a couple months ago. And yeah, she was... she gave me some really great advice on like going inside of yourself and how you can't get outside stuff, to help you go through what you're going through, that you really need to walk through the pain to come out of it. And and so, yeah, I'm just prepared to do that. I'm not worried about being in pain. I'm really excited to get to the other side of it, of something that I thought during it, how like being very scared and not, not believing in myself, or, thinking that I can't do it, coming out of that on the other side and feeling like $1,000,000. It's like, yeah, I'm sure it's going to hurt. I'm sure it's going to be horrible. I'm sure it's going to be super scary. I'm sure I'm not going to want to do it. I'm going to want it to stop. But eventually it's going to be over, like it does stop. Whereas like when you're in the hospital with an epidural, like you're not feeling that stuff, but you don't get that rush of adrenaline. Like you don't get that cascade of hormones. You don't get high as fuck. Like, yeah, of course, like you're in love with your baby. I mean, I obviously can't speak for it. Like I've never gone through it one way or the other. But yeah. And then another woman described it as like she's done every single fucking drug under the sun, and birth doesn't compare to anything like that, that it is the best high ever. And I'm just really looking forward to, yeah, like I said, like coming out on the other side of that. And yeah, I couldn't imagine being in a hospital, not being able to feel anything and not being able to get up and walk around after, not being able to walk to the shower after, being a prisoner there in a hospital bed. That is fucking scary. Way scarier to me than the thought of going through physical pain or being scared, So yeah, I just know that so many other women have done it before me, and that I'm not the first woman to go through this experience, and that like I just want to put their names all over the walls here, like Emily, Rachel, Stephanie, Yolanda, like I want, knowing that she had 7 babies, she had 5 free births, she had a 42-hour labor. Like, I'm not the first person to ever do this, Anyways, how did you manage to get thick in all the right places? Well, I don't know. Like I told you, I didn't really monitor that much, and thank you, I'm very flattered. Yeah. I didn't monitor that much in terms of like, what I was eating and stuff. I mean, I wasn't eating good during the first trimester. Fuck. It was like lots of carbs and lots of like burritos, fast food. Like that's the only stuff I wanted to eat. I couldn't like the stuff that I was regularly eating, like ground turkey and rice, eggs for breakfast. Fucking forget it. I could not eat that stuff. Any kind of meat, just, ugh, I did not want it at all. Okay. What did you find most helpful in planning your unassisted birth? I think, like I said earlier, it was finding a community of women to, latch on to and to learn from. And that course and the podcasts. Okay. Read deleted screenshot from Facebook. A woman asked me these questions that really triggered me because she was really like projecting her shit on me. But she ended up deleting her comment. But I took a screenshot and I'm going to answer the questions anyways because maybe somebody else has those questions or maybe she'll watch this. Okay, hang on a second there. Where did it go? One sec, guys. One, baby catches an infection during the delivery. Well, the chances of that happening at an undisturbed birth where nobody is, putting anything inside my vagina are so fucking slim. So slim that, yeah, you just... She said that the infection that she got was sepsis due to stubbornness of her doing it her way. And said that she said no to alternative options. Prolonged labor apparently caused the infection. So could you imagine how many vaginal exams she got during her prolonged labor? I could imagine that it was in the dozens. And that is obviously what caused her infection. And then she said here, shoulders getting stuck, won't budge. Yeah, so she just goes on to talk about that story, but we already talked about that. So we'd have to know, was she medicated? Was she forced in a position on her back? Was she able to move around? Was she able to walk around? Was she able to get on her hands and knees? Was she able to help work with her baby to get the baby through the birth canal? Or, was she numbed and was she on her back? Because yes, of course, that can happen probably very often if a woman, can't move. Anyways, my camera's about to die. Okay, let's power through these. What are you most excited about as you near your free autonomous birth into motherhood? Just meeting him, just looking at him, breastfeeding him. Yeah, just having him. Okay. Will you monitor the baby's heart rate during labor? No. Number one, no. Just no. I do have a fetoscope, so sometimes I listen to it for a little bit of peace of mind or to connect with my baby, rarely, but I don't time the beats, per minute anymore. I did a little bit in the beginning, but it was stressful. Sometimes I couldn't find the heartbeat, and with a fetoscope, it's not like a Doppler, you gotta wait till you're so pregnant to be able to find it easily. And before that, even around 20 weeks, it's a lot of work to find the heartbeat. And sometimes you're listening to your placenta or your own, and anyways, no, I'm not going to listen to the heartbeat. I know that babies can have very irregular heartbeats or decelerations while they're, while you're listening to their heartbeats whenever they're behind bones and during contractions, and no. List of books to prepare for Freebirth. Unassisted Childbirth by Laura Shanley. Gentle Mothering. I did read, even though there's a lot of practices at the farm and from this one midwife that I don't agree with, it was the first book I read before learning about unassisted birth, Ina May Gaskin's Guide to Childbirth, but I did learn a lot from that book. All right, so I'm just going to finish this up on my phone. My camera died. Okay, will you have a birth photographer? No. We did get a very generous offer from a really good birth photographer, but yeah, as much as I would really love to have that footage, like that professional footage, I can only imagine. It's the woman who did my maternity pictures, Jessica Cardinal Photography on Instagram. She's really good. Yeah, I would love to have whatever she would make out of the birth, but no, it's really important to Gage and I that it's just the two of us here. So we have 2 tripods and a couple phones and a couple cameras, and hopefully, yeah, that'll be Gage's job to have that stuff set up so that we can get screenshots and video. Do you know if your baby is a boy or girl? Yes, it's a boy. We found out at 9 weeks, and then it was confirmed whenever we did the, it's called sneak peek, the test, the blood test. Like you prick your finger at home and send in a couple drops of your blood, and if they find, male, genes or DNA or whatever, then you're having a boy, and if they don't, then you're apparently having a girl. And it's really accurate. It's more accurate than an ultrasound. And I think I would do it again. I really liked knowing the gender, but maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I would just go completely wild for the next pregnancy. We'll see. But I really like knowing this time. It was, it helped me to connect with my baby, knowing, what gender it would be. Has there been any changes in your relationship with Gage in intimacy, emotionally, sexually? I'm way more in love with Gage now. After getting pregnant, I didn't even realize like how possible that would be, because I loved him so much that I wanted to have his baby. And then I became pregnant with his baby, and I just like fell in love with him in a whole different way. And it was really awesome. Really, really awesome. And things are different, like obviously. But like I would go through like times in the pregnancy where like I would, be like super horny, and then I would go through times where, I wouldn't want to have sex, and I would want to do other stuff instead. And yeah, that was fine, but we're so much closer now since conceiving this new life, and it's really cool. It's really cool. And I can't even imagine how much more I'm gonna fall in love with him after this baby is born. Like seeing him as a father, I'm really excited for that. Probably one of the things I'm most excited about is watching him fall in love with this little boy. So, how are you feeling now that the baby is almost here? Just super excited. Really, really excited. Uncomfortable at times, obviously, but really excited. It's hard between the time that I go to bed at night and when I actually fall asleep. It hasn't been that bad now that I've been coloring using Color by Number app on my phone before going to sleep. Instead of just like scrolling, I'm like coloring on my phone. And that usually puts me to sleep pretty fast. But sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I have to just flip onto my hands and knees because I can't breathe on my side. But I'm just really excited. I really want to do this. Like, I'm really excited. What advice could you give to couples who are interested in a more natural birth at home, well, aside from research? Like I said before, like, you don't even need to do research. Like, just stay home. Like, there's not much to it, Like, yeah, I mean, have a plan for what you're going to do with the cord, like maybe have like a cord clamp or something to tie off the cord, or do a lotus birth. But like, there's not a lot you need to know. Like, if something's super wrong, like, you're going to call 911 or you're going to go to the hospital. Like, it's your fucking common sense, It's like your intuition. You don't need to be an expert on birth to give birth. Like, it's like, your body is just set up to do that, And then nobody talked really about like trying to convince your partner, but that is like a question I see a lot, like in the community that I'm in, and whether a woman wants it and then she has to try and convince her partner, and it's like, you don't need to fucking convince anybody. Like, it's your body, your birth, and it's like they can come on board or they cannot come on board, but that should never stop a woman from having the birth that she wants. And if you would want to bring somebody else into that space, like, be very selective, whether it's a medical professional or your mother. Like, just be very selective and really know what that could look like, but you won't really know what that would look like until it happens. And be very selective on who you bring into that space. And if you want to bring somebody into that space to kind of protect you or to keep you feeling safe, like, try and debunk that. Like, what are they going to provide to you? Like, for example, midwives, they bring oxygen to a birth. That was something in the beginning I didn't know anything about. And I'm like, oh, well, yeah, like, they have all these tools. They bring, like, all these kits and oxygen and suture kit. But oxygen is super toxic and super dangerous to use on a brand new baby. Like, you wouldn't need anything more than room air to resuscitate a baby, and it's a controlled substance for a reason, and I really don't think that it has any place in birth. And yeah, I would just really try and look into like what could these other people do to you that you couldn't do for yourself, in terms of making you feel safe. And like a lot of people think that it's extremely irresponsible, to have an unassisted birth or an unassisted pregnancy, but truly I believe it is the most responsible thing you can do. Has your intuition given you any nudges about possible concerns, or is all well? No, I have not had any nudges. I mean, there is sometimes like lingering things that kind of have been put into my head. There barely any now, but in the beginning, yeah, there was some like concerns or fears that it definitely wasn't my intuition, but maybe at the time I didn't know that. Now I know that, but yeah, a lot of fear just around like when I was in the process of deciding to take this into, just my own hands, because, we're meant to believe that we need, like, doctors are good. And whenever, you go to see the doctor, and if you can go extra because that's good. And it's, yeah, it doesn't have to be like that at all. Like, yeah. I really don't need anybody else telling me what's going on with me. And I'm really glad that we have such great access and insurance and stuff here, that if, like a life-threatening emergency ever arose, like whether it be a car accident or something in birth or something, like, that we have access, that we just call 3 numbers and people come and save your life. Like, we're very lucky here. Yeah, and there's a time to use that, and I don't think birth is one of them unless it is a life or death situation, or unless the mother, that's what makes them feel the safest. For myself, I'm obviously speaking, obviously a woman should birth wherever they feel safe, and if that's a hospital or if that's at home with a midwife or whatever. But there was like a lot of getting to the bottom of what my fears were actually based around, and it was mostly shit that was just like implanted in me growing up, like that's really it's just like from society, and it has no real truth or value to it. All right, what's your opinion on having a UC at 35 to 37 weeks? Well, for myself, I had decided, I had heard enough stories of like successful stories of women birthing babies from 32 weeks on at home. Of course, I would have been, so that's whenever I would have felt safe enough to stay at home for the birth, and I would have been obviously ready to transfer afterwards if I thought we needed to. But at that point, with like a premature baby, breastfeeding them and giving them constant skin to skin is the most important thing, and that is something that you would not be able to do for them in a hospital. Not with a baby in the NICU. So if I thought that the baby was having trouble breathing and stuff, then yeah, we would transfer. But yeah, so 35 to 37 weeks, yeah, I would have felt safe to stay at home for sure. And then somebody asked, have you had to deal with yeast infections during pregnancy? No. But I have heard of women using like a clove of garlic for that and other stuff too, but yeah, for that. And then how did I go about finding a doctor that gets me? Well, I don't have a doctor. So yeah, and that's it. Thank you guys. This was a super long video, but I really appreciate whoever stuck around to watch it and everybody who submitted questions. I think it's really important that I'm doing this because yeah, maybe that, maybe some of you guys don't know that this exists, and maybe you'll go on to have an unassisted pregnancy or an unassisted birth because now you know that it's an option. And yeah, if I could, provide that to like one family, that would be incredible. And because, yeah, I wish I would have known about this sooner. Well, it doesn't matter now because I'm doing it for my first baby. But yeah, for other women, that it is an option. It's a perfectly good option. So yeah.